Today's guest is Billy Taylor. Billy is a retired executive from Goodyear and is now the CEO of his own firm, LinkedXL. Since joining Goodyear in 1989, Billy has progressed through a series of leadership positions. He has served as a plant director for both union and non-union facilities, leading lean transformations in Goodyear's largest and most complex tire producing sites. Today, Billy and I will talk about a wide range of topics, including how leaders set the standard by what they accept, how to build a culture of engagement, and how to develop the technical and personal competencies to be able to challenge the process. Here's our guest, Billy Taylor. Okay, Billy, we briefly touched on who you were in the intro, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do, and how lean and continuous improvement is a part of your life?
Well, I spent 30 years with the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. And so I was kind of on the pioneering level of, I'm going to call it modern lean operational excellence. And so I started on the ground in the grassroots. So I was on third shift, night shift, just traditional managing, mostly theory X, right? I'm the leader, do it because I said so. And so, but I think I was raised from a nurturing point of view. To embrace leadership, to embrace people. I remember a clause my dad once told me, muscle can split a shield, but only the unseen power of love can capture the heart of any man. And so he would teach me that about being bravado. And so as I was going through my leadership changes, I had mentors that were the theory X guys, but they weren't effective long-term, right? They couldn't sustain the gain. And that worked as long as they were in sight. All right. But when they walked away, people they weren't ingrained in what they were actually driving or ingrained in the culture of change. And so through my ascent through the ranks, as I went through different levels, it became more prevalent that operational excellence, what it was, how it worked, that inclusive piece of it. And so I went through all those levels and eventually ended up running the world's largest tire plant, union free in Lawton, Oklahoma. And that was, again, a lesson around people, right? And that non-union environment, I would say I was the union president. I was the voice of the people. And so just leading from that perspective. And then from that, I had to go to the largest unionized plant, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And that was a tough assignment. I always tell a story and get a kick out of it to say, when I told my mom, I'm not going to take that assignment, because it's like Gilligan's Island, right? You start on a 3-day trip and you never come back. And so, but I took that assignment and all those lessons around people, appreciating people, valuing people, including people, it transformed that plant. So I ended up running North America. After 30 years, I retired and then went into starting this company, LinkedXL, which is a business operating system architect firm. Basically what that means is we go into your company and we design an operating system fit for you, taking from the Toyota way, taking from Toyota Kata, taking from those things and building it to suit your need. So that's where I'm at today.
Good deal. Yeah, when you were telling that story about Fayetteville, I didn't think of you as the type of person that would shy away from a challenge either. I mean, I get that vibe from you here. So I know you covered the quote that your dad gave you. Is there any other quote or mantra from a favorite leader that you have that you want to share, and maybe why you chose that quote?
I think there was from a couple of books from the book, The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz is more important than the quotes. It was around, and the quotes are embodied in that book, right? It's first be essential with your words, right? Be impeccable with your words, I'm sorry. Don't assume anything, right? And then, but to say, if it does happen, don't take it personal. And the last one is always be at your best. And if you can do those 4 things consistently, you'll succeed, no matter what business you're in. If it's basket weaving, making tires, whatever. And those were the things that really helped me actually as a leader coming through the ranks.
Yeah, I love the Four Agreements. I think it should be required reading for any leader, any person that's going to be responsible for the future of others. And I think it's distilled down into like basic instructions for life, right, and leadership. I love that book. I'll put a link to that book in the show notes. So I'm glad you brought that up. Um, One of these goals with this podcast is to help other lean leaders resonate with your experiences. So, can you can you had a choice, you had a moment where you could be a Theories X guy or someone who led with the principles of the Toyota production system. Can you tell us kind of how you chose that and why you went that path?
hmm Well, as and like I said, I was one of the pioneering members in our organization at that time. And the first approach was around we need Six Sigma black belts. We need this, right? It was all tool focused. And what I saw was we weren't getting buy-in from the people. And so when I looked at Theory X, you weren't getting buy-in, right? You were getting temporary adherence, right? People do what you said do. And then I looked at those leaders from the Toyota principles or lean operational excellence principles. They were building evangelists around the process. They were building people that owned it themselves, right? Because what I saw was there was a difference in accountability and ownership. See, accountability is good as long as you're in the room, right? It's like cleaning up your room when your parents say do something and they're stern, you're going to do it. And then when they walk away, you're going to go back and do what you were doing. Ownership is a 24-hour thing. And so ownership, I saw with the principles of operational excellence, the people were owning the processes. They were owning the systems. And so it was a 24-hour thing. And so that's when I really embraced the cultural piece of it, the cultural piece of operational excellence. Well, wow, this is bigger than you, Billy. This is bigger than you. And it's bigger than us, in fact, because right, all those ideas keep flowing, right? And most leaders I saw that were driven through that Theory X mentality. And let me be clear, Theory X is it's more so authoritarian. They keep telling you what to do, abrasive. When I saw that inclusive piece of it, of people ownership, I thought this is the way to go. And I felt good about me as a person because you know what? It wasn't so much about the source of the idea as it was the solution to the issue. And those solutions came from janitors, they came from, right, service people, they came from everyone. I was recently with a client, and this was remarkable, not for me, to the person that was observing me. Every day I came in and I spoke to Jenny, right? Jenny was the person that cleans the offices and everything. And one day I was in a rush and I kind of left things kind of in disarray. And when I came back, it was just perfect. And I looked and I'm like, who did this? And they said, Jenny. And so I left and went and got a gift card immediately and came back and says, Jenny, I want to say thank you. And she goes, no, that's my job. And I'm like, no, Jenny. Your job is not to clean up after me. I want to thank you for being a partner. I needed that help. And now from that, it was ironic. 2 weeks later, I was just there for a day and Jenny brought in breakfast for the team. Right? You see how it's reciprocated? And those are the principles of operational excellence, right? When you make people visible, they make you valuable. And operational excellence, and what you see is you start to ingrain that ownership, right? And you think of it as like a rental car. I'm accountable for that rental car. I'm not going to treat it just like the one I own. I may go through drive-through and I get a little something on my hand. I'm going to wipe it kind of on the seats, get a napkin, get it off. But I'm not going to do that with the car I own. And no offense, I don't take that car to get the oil changed on my way back.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, no, I love that because I think that's one of the reasons that one of the common themes that I've seen in podcast episodes with guests is teaching people that continuous improvement is not a tool-based system; it's a people-based system. It's software, not hardware. And one of the experiences I had was explaining to someone of, you can lead from a place of compliance or a place of engagement. And do you know which one you do? And he goes, well, I don't know. How do I tell? I said, do people do people walk up to you and say, look what I did, versus you having to ask, what did you do? Right. And that's the flip side of it. And I know it sounds kind of cliche in a moment like this, but when you experience it at the personal level, it is radically different.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. When I was leading in the plant, I found it more beneficial when I walked up to an associate person and I look at the difference between engagement and entitlement. And to keep it simple, uh, entitlement, right? That's I tell you. Engagement is you tell me, right? And so even when I knew the answers in some cases, I would walk up and ask those people. And just the fact that they had the opportunity to engage and to talk, especially when you're a leader or executive in a company or a plant manager, it's not how you see yourself, it's how that they see you. And when you walk by and you don't speak and you don't acknowledge and you
They
don't show
remember.
them value, right? They check out on you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked a lot about success with the continuous improvement principles and how you've taken that from growing your leadership at Goodyear, and now you've built your own company where you're helping to do these other things here. It's not all with continuous improvement. It's not always rainbows and unicorns. It's not always sunny skies. Um, can you talk about any pitfalls or mistakes that you went through and kind of how you handled that setback and grew from it?
Mhm. Uh, I often talk about what you accept you cannot change. What you accept, right? That's your standard. That validates what your standards really are. Most people say, well, we have standard work. We do Gemba walks. But when you do that Gemba walk, whatever you walk by is the standard. Whatever you accept the person doing, it's the standard. And so mistakes I made early in my career are, I'm not going to call them mistakes. I know in sports, we say you took the L. And I would say, yes, I took an L. It wasn't a loss, it was a lesson. And so I took many L's to get on. That's why I'm on the show today, because of the lessons, not necessarily because how good I was or how successful I was. And so when I say what's your standard, lean journeys fail because of what leaders accept, what they tolerate. Uh, when you're talking your visual boards, if people are going to test your hypothesis, people are going to test what you're rolling out, and if you allow that, then that's the new standard. And so when I would fail, it was a result of me accepting people not following processes, people not following standards. And it's not fair to say what was my favorite mistake or lesson learned without giving a solution, right? When you say that what you accept, you cannot change. And I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, you're allowing people to not follow the process. You're allowing people not to buy in. And I say this, how did I correct it? I made a decision to be hard on the process so I could be easy on the people. I was very robust around here's the standard. And you know what? I communicated. I let people know what the expectations were. Then I asked them for feedback, right? So that I can do it with them, not to them. And then once that happened, when I came back, I had earned the right culturally and technically, right, to get people to follow the process.
That's absolutely true. And what I love about that, Billy, is that when faced with a setback, you didn't try to fix other people. You said, I am the one that needs to be fixed. I am the one. I'm the element here that's allowing the mediocrity to pervade itself throughout the environment. It's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer, right? So
That's correct. That's right. That
so
and from I'm gonna say it's not really courageous, but it takes courage to make the changes. I was talking to someone yesterday with a client base, and I was blatantly asked, "So, Billy, where do you see some of the gaps?" And I said, "The some of the leaders in that room don't buy in. They don't see this as a value. And I said, at some point, if you don't see this as a value, why are you doing it? And as a leader, sometimes it has to be a condition of employment. And I don't think you should go out seeking to fire someone or do anything like that. No, but what's the process and what's the standard? Right? I can't go into a bank with a bag and say, fill it up with money. Right? There's going to be some consequences. Right? There are policies, there are rules, there's laws, there's standards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think leaders sometimes are the biggest reason that lean journeys fail, not the employees. In most cases, the people are ready to go.
Yeah, they've been waiting for it. They've been waiting for a leader that will come and listen to them. Is that? Yeah, I've also seen where when they have bad leadership, and you go and you ask, hey, what's going on here? Help me understand where we're missing. And they're like, man, that guy, that gal is not engaged. They're not looking out for me. They're looking out for them. I've been here for 25 years. I've seen folks like that come and go. I'm just waiting them out. Right.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure you've seen the exact same thing at Goodyear. And I mean, those guys and gals have lots of tenure, and they exercise it as they should, right? Because they're custodians and people of the process. They have custody of the process,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. So, I had a plant manager. He's also a close friend of mine, Ellis Jones. He ran the NASCAR. He made NASCAR tires. And he was going to be the plant manager, 100-year-old plant, unionized. And his first day, the person sits up on the front row and says, we have no expectations of you. We're going to wait you out. Right? You're just like the others. And I remember him giving me a call. And he focused on earning the cultural and technical right to change, to get them to buy in. And then what he did was shift ownership with the union, with everyone around. Here's what the standard was. And they ended up winning the Association of Manufacturing Excellence Award 2 years after he left. So they continued on that journey, and but it was a mandate, right, that we're going to adhere to the standard with his leadership team.
That's awesome. What's your favorite aha moment with your career with lean and continuous improvement? Like, what's the nirvana moment for you when it comes to, hey, this is exactly how it should be?
The story is really interesting. I was in a plant in Tyler, Texas, and I get there on Monday as the assistant plant manager. On Tuesday, they make changes, and I have the keys to the house. And I realized that it is an enterprise effort, not an individual effort. It's not how smart I was at that point. It was around connecting the intersections. That was the aha moment, right? When you talk silos, how do you connect the intersections of a business? Actually, you see behind me, those are intersections, right? And when I say intersections, you say safety has to work with operations has to work with quality. And so at that point, you need the cross-pollination of everybody on the team. And that moment, then I realized it was bigger than just a Billy Taylor. And to go and sit at tables, and it was at that time, it's very intense. I was the first Black plant manager of that facility. They were having some issues. I went to every table, no matter who was sitting at the table. And I talked to the people, and I'd engage the people. Met with the union president. At that point, I realized I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I had to go get help. I had to get people to show me what it is to do a Gemba walk, an effective one, right? How do I, and so those aha moments was that aha moment was, it takes a village to run the village.
Absolutely. It's not Billy's world. Billy's just in it, right?
That's right. That's a great point, Chris.
Oh, yeah. The gimbal walks, people think, oh yeah, we go on gimbal walks, and then you go walking with them. It's like gimbal walking dead. I mean,
That's right.
it's just you're wandering,
That's
right?
right. Right. Because you're
So
walking by, we become programmed, right? And if you're just doing a gimbal walk, you're just walking by the things you're familiar with. You really don't know how to expose secrets. You don't know how to right surface things that need to be surfaced. Now you asked me about my favorite quote. My most favorite, I have two. The first one is, you can't manage a secret. It's impossible. And so often, even when you do strategy deployment, it stalls out at a certain level. It never gets to the shop floor where it's closest to the source. If it doesn't get to the shop floor, that means your strategy is a secret. So how are you managing it? And the next piece of my next quote is, in the absence of ownership comes blame. When people don't know what they own, then they blame when it doesn't happen. And so those are my two favorite quotes.
yeah. I think in Mark Graban's My Favorite Mistake episode, you talked about heroes. All right. And so I tell folks what a hero is.
A hero helps everyone redirect ownership. That's what a hero is. Listen, heroes are good when it comes to Marvel Comics, cartoons, but in operations, I don't want any heroes, right? I don't want any heroes.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to shift gears here a little bit and kind of get to kind of like a hot seat type interview environment here. So I'm just going to rattle off some questions. First thing that comes to your mind. So
Sure.
first one is, do you have a lean or continuous improvement pet peeve and that you frequently see being applied or done wrong?
Start with safety and cleanliness. That's my pet peeve. Don't get into all of the big tools. And next, now if you move past safety and housekeeping, remember, it's not about the KPIs, key performance indicators. It's more about the KPAs, the key performance actions, right? So those are the things that drive the KPI. So KPIs, if I want to lose weight, standing on the scale is a KPI. The KPA is, did I eat right? Did I work out? So when you're starting to build your journey, build it around KPAs, not KPIs.
Okay, great advice. All right. What do you consider the most important thing that you've learned so far in your career journey?
People, engaged people are the keys to success. But with that, I would tell you, as human beings, we have four basic needs. And it's the need to be valued, the need to be understood, okay? To be understood, there's a need to be heard. And the last one, as human beings, we need to be emancipated. We need to feel that we can be our authentic selves in any environment. And so that for me is core.
Okay. What piece of advice would you give to that young leader that's just starting out with Lean, Six Sigma, or continuous improvement?
Seek to understand before you seek to change. Don't go in with a predetermined mindset of what it takes to lead a lean transformation. Know what they do well first before you try to tell them what they need to do better.
Absolutely. Operate in read-only mode for a minute, right?
That's,
Don't start trying to make changes, right?
that's right.
So someone that's further along in their career, that journeyman professional, what advice would you give to them? And maybe something that someone told you that helped you recently?
Seek a millennial mentor. Seek someone that looks through a different lens than what you look through. As I was coming up, right, and I'm just a blatant example. I had to work to live. Right, that was just the way I grew up. Get a job, do well. In today's culture, my children, they live and work. Right, they have a different perspective of what a work environment would be. And especially after COVID, it's changed the way we do. So what I often find myself, even my staff, we have millennials. We have people that are seasoned. I'm gonna call myself seasoned. I would say get perspectives from different viewpoints. Don't just rely on your old trusted paradigms.
Okay, that's great advice.
That would be my advice.
So, now looking back on it, I'm wondering if my mentor considered me a millennial. if I was his version when I sought him for advice, and maybe he was trying to get my perspective instead. I imagine there's probably an element of that because he's way more wise than I'll ever be. Right.
Well, what we do, we have debriefs, and again, there's millennials on the staff, and their perspective is much different than my perspective and my other colleague. Right, my other colleague, him and I are close in age, and our couple of members on the staff, they are 23 to 25, and they'll say, why are you doing that? Oh,
Yeah.
you know how long it takes you to get that done? And then vice versa. We'll say, and this was just recently, and we said, do you have a memory stick? And memory stick, what about the cloud? Right? It was like, so we all can get it at all times, right? We all have access. So, and that's just a simple, when we do the gimbal walks, we recently found out a better way based on the lens of that person. So again, we know how to do some things right, but then there's always a better way and a different perspective. So be open-minded to learn something new, because the older we get, and it's like me being an athlete. I always talk about when I tell my kids, we're in mom's living room telling those stories, right? The older we get, the better we were, right?
Yeah.
You know, we tell those stories that we think we're so good. We weren't that good. That's why we all have jobs now.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly.
So that for me has been still, I'm a continuous student. I am a continuous student. I seek to learn. I listen, I read books every week, just learning. And one of the books that I keep repeatedly reading is Extreme Ownership. Right? That's a great book. And no matter how many times you read it, you find something different.
Absolutely.
A different nugget to take away. So that for me.
So I'll put a link to that book in the show notes page. That was actually my next question was what was your favorite book? So it's now we're in that point of engagement where it's like the conversation's leading itself, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and just to make sure that folks are aware of what age group I fit in, here's my memory stick right here. And I remember getting excited about paying way too much money for a 1 gigabyte memory stick, right? It's
yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
We've come a long way.
Absolutely.
So,
go ahead.
No, so Billy, if you could take a magic wand, and I know that magic wands don't exist, but if you had one and you could fix anything in a facility that you were coaching, what would you typically want to wave the wand at first?
The no perspective, not the NO perspective, the KNOW, right? Where I'm getting information to people. I'm getting real time, feedback, right? So we can do analysis. So we can, right? We can build a hypothesis, test a hypothesis, and improve on a hypothesis. And so when I look at a plan, I walk in, once I move beyond the first thing I focus on when I walk in a building is the housekeeping, and also safety, unsafe conditions. That's and that's telling about the organization, about the leadership. And then I do a comparison and contrast. I walk through the office and I look at the condition of the offices, the condition of those bathrooms, the conditions of their eating spaces. And then I walk in the plant and look at those conditions. And they should be equivalent, right? They should be on the same level, right? And from that, I look at visual management. The fact, do people know? Now there's two perspectives, I think, that that drive successful organization, virtual and visual. They have to meet. And you know when you've got it, when you can see where virtual meets visual. See, what's behind me tells me how am I doing at 10 seconds or less. Now, if I walk in any bulletin board, I stand 10 feet from the board and walk 10 steps, and I stop 3 people in that area, and I'll often ask, so what does that board mean to you? And the answer I get, again, I like to have a little fun. It's the old Scooby-Doo answer. Who knows? Right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm like, so why is the board there? Right. Why is the board there? It's for the leader. That's it. And it's not for the people. And when I say where virtual meets visual, often strategy deployment is done in a, right? The matrix is in a computer. And once the matrix gets done, it gets posted on the wall. It never gets to the shop floor. And so how do you break that down? And my magic wand is around virtual meets visual. I want to be able to see it. I want to be able to walk to the machine and see if the operator knows what they own. Remember, in the absence of ownership comes blame, and you can see it repeatedly, right? Because this is their franchise. They're running a corporation when they're running that machine. And if they don't know the KNOW, then it's a secret. And remember,
Absolutely.
you can't manage a secret.
Yeah, my favorite story about metrics and posting metrics was I was a young operations leader, and we had an hour, a performance by hour tack board where we were writing out what we were supposed to make, what we made, and I remember one of my supervisors come to me and said, "Why am I doing this? I mean, I know what we've made." I said, "How many times a day does someone who doesn't do what you do come by and ask how things are going?" "Oh, all the time. They bother me." I said, "If you put it on the board, they'll leave you alone." So a day later, she comes to me. She goes, "Oh my goodness, I got more done yesterday than I ever got, and all I had to do was take a dry erase marker and write a number on a board." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's your number, right?" I mean, that was it shows that you know what's going on, and the people that are looking to make conversation with you and taking away from your time, now they're getting their information that you've already provided to them. And it sends a message of, if it's really important, you need to bother me. Otherwise, you need to just gather your information like everybody else.
Absolutely. And you know, it goes back again, by doing that, you also appeal to those 4 basic needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. You have them, I have them. Again, I was talking to an individual yesterday, and they're explaining to me about their mindset around their job. And I said, so you don't feel valued? Person paused. Yeah, that's it. So you don't hate your job. You just don't feel valued.
Yep.
Right. Address that.
Everyone deserves to have meaningful work. That's, yes. I mean, that's it's a basic need, right? It's the work that I'm doing meaningful to others.
And you know what Chris, really was mind blowing is these principles and values are what drives healthy households. So when you say some aha moments, those things drive healthy households. All right. And I'll go back to make people visible. You know, my wife, my son, one of the most flattering compliments, he goes, "Dad, I constantly take from pages of your book. When you walk in the house, you make sure you acknowledge mom. You make sure that you do certain things to let her know she's valued, and what she does for us is valued. And from that, it's reciprocated. It's reciprocated." He goes, "I know some days you walk in the house and she'll say, you know, honey, could you take out the trash?" And you just walked in the house and you're thinking, can I just sit down for a minute?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? You
yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead and take the trash out.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
do that. Right. It's like, that's my part of what we agreed to, right? What the standard.
Yep, that's the standard, right?
That's the
you
standard.
Can't walk by a full trash can.
Right? Can't walk by it. And so, and so with that aspect, as a leader, one of the core principles are valuing people, getting people involved. Sammy the janitor, Love Sammy. Every holiday he texts me, "I love you, General. I miss you." He was a general. He was a janitor in Fayetteville. We would have coffee every Saturday morning. The only time Sammy got mad at me is when I didn't let him buy. I kept buying repeatedly, right? That's a value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
We're friends, right? Therefore, friends treat friends with respect, right? I'm not trying to carry Sammy. Jenny, right? At the that person or the person at the rental car center, and you never know what somebody's going through. You never
Everybody's
know.
carrying something. Yep.
That's right. And so, how you treat people is the core of operational excellence. When I left Tyler, it was interesting. The person that I thought may have had differences became my greatest evangelist. And I remember standing there with my successor leaving, and Mr. Stout says, I'm going to miss you. I'm really going to miss you. It's the way you treated us, the way you made us feel. This was our plan. And he goes, "Mister, I don't know who you are, but at this point, you got to earn our trust," and vice versa. That was heart wrenching to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things. And also, again, let's take it back home. My son is the one that really taught me that about KPAs, KPIs, and he played for St. Vincent St. Mary's. That's where LeBron went. And they were playing for their second state championship. Every day I took him to the gym at 5:30, and we put up 200 shots. And the goal was to make 60%. On the last day, I had to go to a meeting, and I couldn't stay there with him. And he shot 87%. But he sent me a picture, and his face had a frown on it. So I called him. And I said, "Son, what's the problem?" He says, "Dad, what do you mean? I shot 87%. So look at your face." He says, "Dad, I have to have a confession. That 87% didn't mean anything because you weren't here. Today, I realized that you never came to the gym with me to make me a great basketball player. It was our time to spend together. Dad, today I realized we're not going to ride to work together anymore, where I get to play my favorite song, you get to play your favorite song. We talk about challenges in life." He says, "Dad, I have to correct you on something. Yeah, good leaders measure what matters, but great leaders embrace the fact that everything that matters can't be measured." And that's
Powerful.
where change really happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the mouth of babes. Right. So
Yeah.
powerful. Right. Billy, this has been a great conversation. I know you've got a lot of new things coming up. You've got a book in the works. You've got some speaking engagements, and you have a company. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more about what you do, or if they have a question for you?
Yes. The best way to catch me is in LinkedIn. At night, that's my television show, or shall I say my media of choice. If to find out more about the company, it's LinkedXL.com. If you want to interact, it's LinkedIn, and I actually manage my own social media. If you get a response back, it's directly from me. And I'm in the works with a book, the LinkedX process. How do you link and manage the intersections of an operation through McGraw-Hill? Putting the finishing touches on that, and it's really, I'm going to say, NGL, next generation lean. It's like, what's different about this is taking those elements from all of these things we've been taught about operational excellence, from Toyota, from Deming, from Toyota Kata, everyone, and blending it. And then once we blend it, we actually go back and say, what's best for your culture, right? It's like, I want a Bentley, but I need a ride to work.
Yeah.
Right. And most people go to buy the Bentley. You really don't need that Bentley. In most cases, it's not even applicable to your need, because you just bought a Bentley and you're trying to haul 8 people. You need a van. Right?
Yeah.
So
hey, look,
that's
I tell my kids all the time, says I will never own a minivan, but I will rent one every chance I get when we're going on a family trip. Right? I go straight to that when I'm at
That's
the
right.
in the Emerald Isle, right? Like
That's right.
minivan,
That's
right?
right. It's funny. I was in Atlanta moving my daughter, and my wife and I went to the rental car place, and she goes right for the minivan. Whoa, wait a minute! It's just two of us. We don't need a minivan anymore. But,
Yeah. So it's habit, right? So, hey,
yes, yes.
Billy, thank you so much for giving of your time for this podcast audience. I'm really appreciative of you sharing your wisdom. And if anyone has a question for Billy, he will answer. I mean, I testimony, right? So,
That's right.
Billy,
That's right.
thank you again. I appreciate you being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to everyone and everyone listening.
I really want to thank Billy for being a guest on the podcast today. I know I learned a lot from our conversation, and I hope you found value in our conversation as well. Be sure to go to leanleadershippodcast.com and look at the show notes page for this episode to learn more about how to connect with Billy, his company LinkedXL, and for other helpful links. I'd also like your feedback if you have questions, comments, or suggested guests for the podcast. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the webpage, there's a microphone. Click it and leave us a message. If you leave a question, I will try and connect you with one of our guests that may be able to help you. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, seek progress over perfection.